The language you use can make you slower at rowing, and it could also make you faster at rowing. It can increase your nerves, it could increase your anxiety, or it can reduce that. The words that we speak are so powerful, not just in like affecting the way we view things, but literally in the physical chemistry that happens in our brain. So I'm making this video just because it's something I feel very strongly about. It's also something I go on about a lot because I really believe that you can really change it, and it's a very coachable thing that you can influence, and it can make a very positive experience on your rowing, and left alone it can leave a very negative experience with your rowing. It can make your rowing experience worse, your performance worse. It can affect the people that you train with as well. So it basically just comes down to language. Like, well, actually, first thing that's probably important to say is this is kind of for people that are choosing to do, performance, where they're going out to race, or they're going out to PB on a 2K, or they want their appeal to the sport is kind of more towards the performance side of it. So if you're somebody that does rowing just purely for enjoyment, you're looking for it for fitness, you just like to go out and row and you really love the way it feels when the boat runs, or you just love the kind of hypnotic nature of the rowing machine or whatever, then this video maybe isn't so much to you. Basically what I'm going into is kind of the I hate this, I hate that sort of like language that can be used in rowing. So this video is just going to be basically explaining why language is so important in not just rowing but everywhere else in life. To kind of give you some context, like for me, like when I was training in groups from a club level, working my way up through to more competitive clubs and then getting into the GB team, it's something that's prevalent at all levels, and it's something that has a negative effect at all levels. It just used to frustrate me massively when there'd be people who would choose to show up to training, and again, we were a group of people that were maybe training towards race or trials or Henley Royal Regatta, or everybody wanted to PB on a 2K, but when things got hard, they would actively use language like, I hate this, I hate doing this, I don't want to do this, get everybody to agree with it, because it is hard, and it just sort of builds this kind of snowball effect where you end up getting less out of your sessions because you're going into it with the wrong mindset. And ultimately, the first thing I would say is remember why you've chosen to go down the performance route of the sport, why you find the appeal. You really like to see improvement, you get a buzz, you love seeing what your potential is, you love challenging yourself. These are all good things, and they're very important to remember when things get hard and you're viewing something negatively. So the thing that frustrates me a lot about this is that simply just this video is just all about the language and the words that we use, and the impact that it has on your experience, and not just yours but the people that are around you and their experience, because it's something that's very easy to kind of for other people to latch onto. So obviously this is a totally extreme example, but you see it all the time with extremism, and it kind of appeals, it can very easily get momentum because it kind of appeals to this sort of primitive nature in us. Again, of course, that's totally like extreme and not the importance of performance rowing versus, these hate issues, completely different, but it's just that it's that same kind of way it taps into like our appeal when somebody else says, I hate this, that yeah, I hate this as well. It's a primitive reaction. And again, I don't know how relevant this is, but something I thought that was pretty cool that I heard was the opposite. If you looked at a brain scan, you looked at the opposite of love isn't hate. Like when you really enjoy something, the opposite of it isn't hate. The opposite of it is indifference. If you look at a brain scan when somebody is in love or very happy or whatever, the same parts of the brain are activated when you're experiencing hate, or you're feeling very strongly against something. So my point is that it can be very easy to kind of get the two mixed up together, that, you know, your love for the sport and your hate for it can be very easily switched because it's such a similar thing. To get into the video, basically, you can choose what you say, obviously. You know, you're not going to be able to choose to not be tired. You're not going to be able to choose to not push yourself into doing a hard session if you want to get that. If your goal is performance, if your goal is seeing what your potential is, then there's some things that you can choose to do, and there's something that you can't choose. And if ultimately, if you want to reach your potential, you're gonna have to go through hard training. There's no choices on that. At the same time, the way you approach that is your choice, and the language, like literally the words that you speak, are so easy to change. Like, you know, if I have this pen, and you say to me, don't say that you hate this pen, like literally just don't say it. You know, it's not hard. I hate this pen. Like, you can choose to not use these words, and this is kind of what I'm getting into. And I want to explain how literally just when you say words, like if you stood here and said, I hate this pen 10 times every day, your brain would start to negatively associate this pen with hate and negative feelings. So basically, one of the first things that happens when you start to do self-talk is basically you start to trigger the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is responsible for processing emotions. And what happens is when you speak negatively, you trigger, in small amounts, you know, fear, anxiety, and you start to build connections. Again, I'm really big on like connections in your brain, and basically the neural pathways in your brain, connections between different decisions that you make, they get stronger. The more they happen, they get stronger, and they get really, really good. In the same way, it's a muscle. So when you practice self-talk, you're practicing negative emotions, and these negative emotions increase adrenaline, they increase cortisol, which of course increases anxiety. Cortisol and adrenaline have been shown to negatively impact focus, memory, and decision making, as well as increasing muscle tension and fatigue. You know, and this kind of sends you into a perpetual loop where you do negative self-talk, these stress hormones are raised, you feel worse, you go back and you think you're obviously feeling worse than you were before, so you more negative self-talk, and you kind of get in this perpetual loop with it all. The default mode network is an area of the brain that is basically responsible for the feelings and emotions that you have when you're not focused, or when you're not, you know, actively processing anything. So think when you're driving or when you're lying on the couch. Negative self-talk can negatively impact in the default mode network, and kind of have this constant drip of negativity and small amounts of stress, which again overall accumulates and builds up in the body. Again, of course, this is a result of you saying words. Like if I said right now, don't say I hate rowing, while you're watching this, can you do that? Okay, so next time you're in a position when it's hard, or when your past self might have said, I hate rowing, don't say it. Literally just saying the words triggers all of these negative responses, which impact your rowing. Now, the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that's responsible for decision making, focus, discipline, all the kind of like willpower parts of the brain. Now, unsurprisingly, negative self-talk impacts the prefrontal cortex, impacts your ability to regulate your emotions, which of course increases stress, increases anxiety, increases muscle tension, all things that are going to negatively impact your rowing performance and your rowing enjoyment. Now, it's probably also important to say that, of course, with mental health in sports, there's a fine line. There's no denying it, that with performance sport, there's a lot of it that you need to have control, and you need to actively sort of block out negative feelings that you have, so long as they're strictly towards the sport. Now, of course, people that are going through perhaps struggles in their personal life or whatever, or even, you know, they could be in a very toxic environment within their sport, within their crew, within their training group, that can be causing these emotions, which of course is something that you do want to talk about and you do not want to ignore. My kind of advice is, assuming that all of these things are okay, it's just important to recognize that with performance sport, you need to have a fine line between acknowledging feelings that you have and at the same time becoming very good at blocking out the bad ones. So to summarize, basically, I think one thing that's important to do when you start rowing, I always say it, but what are you trying to get out of it? Are you simply doing this for fitness, enjoyment, for fun, to go out with friends when you're going rowing, to get on the rowing machine to stay fit because you just really love the movement? Then that's fantastic. I think there's such a great space for that, and I do put out a lot of information that's there for people like that, and keep doing what you're doing. That's great work. For people that are looking to hit a time, they're looking to see what their potential is, they're looking to race, to get into a crew, to move up in a crew. Do you really want to do that? Because if you need to know what's involved in order to get there, and negatively talking about the hard stuff makes the hard stuff harder and gets in the way. And I've seen it happen so many times before, where it's just this constant negative loop where the words you use make your situation worse, they make you perform worse, other people listen to it and they agree with you, and then it makes them perform worse. On the contrast, if you're somebody who is positive around training, you can really influence a group. Look at these challenges, look at these difficult situations as good things, because it means you're in a place where you're reaching your full potential. Like, that is a good thing. That's something you should be excited about when it comes to a race or a test. That pressure that you chose to do, again, remember, you're choosing to do the performance side of it. That is a good thing. That is why you're here. And ultimately, if you hate it that much, if you really hate it that much, then either don't go down the performance route or pick a different sport, because you're ultimately just going to be having a negative experience. And my job as a coach is to get the most out of people, whether you're working with me or not. My job is to really question motivation, to question, your training situations, and maybe if this can be something that you're struggling with because it's forcing you to look internally into like the way you view things. And it's not hard, but why I feel so strongly about this is because it's such an easy thing to change. It's so, like, even if you don't feel it, even if you're 2K, even if the emotions you experience are negative, like say right now, or say the next time it comes to a 2K, and usually when it comes to 2K, you get close, you start saying, oh, I hate this. Oh, teammate, don't you hate this? Don't you hate doing 2Ks? I wish we didn't have to do a 2K. Yeah. I agree. All you have to do is the next time you get into that situation is either don't say that, or say you can't wait for it, and you don't have to believe it. This is actually quite an important part. You don't have to believe it in order to have an effect. All you have to do is say those positive words, and they start to reverse the negative self-talk that you used to do before. You end up reducing your stress, you end up reducing fatigue, muscle tension, you increase the chance that you're going to be able to perform, you increase your enjoyment as well, which is ultimately why we're here, to enjoy it. You can also have a positive effect on your whole crew, which again, if you're competing, can give you a competitive advantage from a coaching perspective as well. You can be seen as a very good person, not just in terms of, that's something you can bring to a crew when it's not just like your 2K. Maybe you don't have the best 2K. It's something that you can have a good impact on a crew where, so-and-so, they're a really good teammate. They really bring the most out of all their teammates and stuff. And, when that person is not there, we really notice it because that positive energy is gone. So if I can give you a simple take home, the first thing would be like, genuinely ask yourself why you're doing this sport. Do you want to see what your potential is? And if so, accept that there's going to be hard stuff, and accept that try and learn that when you get to that situation again where it gets hard, that you can literally, all you have to do, your homework is to literally either say nothing. So don't say, I hate this, I hate that, oh my God, I can't wait until we don't have to do this. Stop saying that. Say nothing, regardless if you're still feeling the same emotions, or trick your brain, trick the chemical reactions in your brain by saying you're excited. And you can say it in a joking way. You can say, I love this. You can say, oh my God, don't you just love the 2K? Even saying it like that has enough effect to reverse some of your negative self-talk that you've done before. View these challenges, view these hard things as good things. They're good for you. That's why you've ultimately chosen to do this sport. If you found this helpful, like the post, comment what you think. If you're somebody that struggles with negative talk, comment down below what you really struggle with, because all I'm asking you to do is imagine this pen is a 2K and I'm saying, don't say you hate it. It's not hard. And then what I'm now asking you to do is say, I really love this pen. This pen is so good. This is the best pen ever. I just love it. It's so nice. It's shiny. It writes well. Start to pick specific things about it. So, start to use language. I am excited to challenge myself. I'm excited to see what I can do. Get specific and get a more positive experience with your rowing. Reach your potential. Find more fulfillment. Find more enjoyment. Bye.